Okay.
Initially, what are your thoughts on what the Mariners did or did not do?
They kind of did what I was expecting them to do. I mean, I knew they were going to trade Paul Sewald. That's just it's a very Dipoto move, but it's a very just modern GM move. It's a closer type reliever that's older. It's going to get more expensive the next year and the year after that, and probably pitching at the highest level. That's when you capitalize. You usually don't get a ton of value from closers in the offseason. So I figured that was a move they made. And partially because Paul Sewald is why they can trade him. Like they made, I wouldn't say they made him, they helped make him. He did the work himself in terms of believing in what they said. But like they taught him or they offered the information about what he could be if he did certain things. He embraced it, kept with it even when it wasn't working right away, and he became this guy. Well, I mean, like if you're the Mariners and you've had success with Paul Sewald, and if you think about the 2021 year, they go get JT Chargois off a minor league sign, I think, and Drew Steckenrider and those guys were valuable. And you look at this year, Justin Topa, Gabe Spire, Taylor Saucedo, it's found money, I think is what I wrote. It's found money, and they've made them into something. They've helped make them into something. So that's why they believe they could move on from Seawald when he's getting expensive and just find somebody else to do it. And they have some young arms in the organization. It's a very Tampa Bay Rays type of deal. We kind of joked about it, but when the Rays traded Diego Castillo to the Mariners, a lot of people in Tampa thought, oh, why are they doing this? And a lot of people in the Mariners like, oh man, we're getting a steal. But what the Rays knew is that Diego wasn't in great shape. He was starting to lose some of his effectiveness with his command, and he was getting expensive. So they made the trade. And that's kind of what Paul, like, I just feel like his value was never going to be any higher to them or on the open market than it was right now. And they moved on from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think getting three players, especially for 1.5 years of a reliever, if you look at it from a objective standpoint, I think that's pretty solid with what they got. They got technically two big leaguers, one guy that's going on his fifth year, and then with Canzone, a guy that was crushing AAA, super high batting average, on base percentage, and now he was batting in the middle of the Diamondbacks lineup, who's fighting for their division, and now he comes over to the Mariners in that deal. What do you see in Josh Rojas and Canzone?
I see players that can help. I mean, like, I think what you hope with Canzone is that like he's a guy. I mean, obviously not maybe Mitch Haniger, but like a guy that's kind of got that similar build and profile that can help you. Um, you know, Maybe he's not an all-star, but he's a quality big leaguer, and like he can help you play. Um, they've lacked that. I mean, like think about some of the left fielders and right fielders they've ran out there in the past years. Hell, they run out utility infielders for so much of this last few years. Like Canzone he's a decent defensive player and he has a pretty good approach. I mean, it was still better than what you have, especially with Jared being hurt. Rojas, he had a decent WAR last year. He's kind of ran into the skids this year, but he's a good athlete. I mean, like it's still in a way, it's a better. You got younger at those positions, and you put some guys out there that maybe can help you. Again, like I said, Paul can only help you in certain situations. These guys can help you on a daily basis, and so yeah, they're great. I mean, I guess if they could have shot Paul for like the one guy, but even like Kittle Graveman got Corey Lee, the catcher from the Astros, is kind of their top catching prospect. But I mean, like, I don't believe he was like a top 100 guy either. So it's like, you're the value is as high as it ever will be, but it's not like bringing you back a Jared Kelnick prospect when he was younger or something like that. That just doesn't happen per se unless the team is super desperate. So
Yeah.
I thought it was about reasonable. I mean, I'm not a prospect guy, and it's funny is we everybody sits there and grades these trades. Like we don't know. I mean, like, yeah, you're grading it based on what you see now, but like, do we really know what these guys are going to be or not? What if Paul's terrible for him? What if he's terrible for him next year? Look at Kess. It's like the Abraham Toro had one hot month, and it was, oh, Mariners won the trade. Did they? Did they really win the trade? I mean, Graveman and Montero that year, the Astros played in the World Series. The Mariners were watching the World Series at home. They didn't win it, but they were there. Montero State helped them win the World Series the next year. I think the Astros won the trade. Toro's gone. What was he? Negative WAR player for him. He had a nice couple months. He had a couple hits. He's a nice guy, but just wasn't an everyday guy. Yeah, I just think that it was about requisite with what I thought. I didn't think they were going to get a whole lot for Paul. I thought they'd get something, but I think they just decided it was better to get something that could help them at the MLB level this year and next year right away than to get a more of a lottery ticket type of guy that hadn't been above AA.
Yeah. I guess with that, do you think they got more than you thought they would have gotten, or is it just a wait and see type thing?
I think it's more volume, than it is maybe you get two guys, but maybe the other guy's a little bit higher on the prospect rankings or something like that. But no, the volume, it sounded like from what they wanted Rojas, and they weren't going to give in, and they finally got him to push Rojas in. I mean, in in a purely statistical way, Josh Rojas doesn't look that valuable, but to a team, because he can play all these different positions, because he's kind of a good dude in the clubhouse, because he, has some ability to run the bases, he's valuable to a team that maybe doesn't always measure up statistically. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was, nothing I never looked at it and said, oh man, they won it or they lost it. I mean, trades are usually made so both sides address a need. It's that's the difference. I think Jerry understands that a little bit more. Jack Z, because of the first trade he made ever as a GM, and it was Franklin Gutierrez and that crazy 9-player trade, he always wanted to win every trade. So the trade would be at the deadline or the finish line, and then he'd ask for a sweetener. Oh, I need one more guy, or I need this guy instead of this guy. He always wanted to make sure it looked like he came out on top. Well, that's not what trades are for. You're not trying to win the trade. You're trying to make your team better. It's not about, whether somebody from the Athletic or Bleacher Report or from the Seattle Times thinks that you won the trade. It's whether or not those players help you to win games moving forward.
Right. And going into kind of the, it's hard to tell that, who wins right now. You got Rojas for another 3.5 years. You got Canzone for 6 years. Then you got Ryan Bliss, who's now in AAA. We'll see if he can help out at second base, maybe as soon as next year.
Well, yeah, what they got is players that have minor league options that have big league time. That's what they don't have. That's why they had to go get those guys, is because you look at AAA and what they have at AAA. Yeah, you have Haggerty there, and I think we'll see him here eventually soon. But you have Haggerty and Zach DeLoach and Jake Shiner. They're nice players, but again, they don't have that big time prospect. There's no Kyle Lewis sitting at AAA when he was a prospect, or Jared Kelenic when he was there, or even Julio's a AA. But they don't have they're one of their top 5 position player prospects sitting at AAA just waiting to be called up. When Adam Jones was at AAA raking, and they brought him up a few different times in 2007, you knew it was because he's going to be here eventually, but he can help us now. It was whatever. The Mariners don't have those guys. And that's, Canzone and Rojas and all these guys. They represent a little bit better quality of player with some big league experience at that kind of age grouping. Jerry calls it waves or whatever, but that kind of 25, 24 to 27-year-old age that you can use and help you out. I mean, it's not a sexy trade by any means, but it helps them and makes them a little deeper. And they don't have those guys really to help them out right now.